Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a bitter irony that right after we all kind of sort of agree that you'd like more videos or the same number of videos but shorter length, that as soon as we agree on all that, I get bombarded with mail. It's partly due to the weekend. Saturday, I have different drivers, different delivery routes, different times. And as a result, we have the last mail haul of the week is enormous. So, so the only way that this video itself cannot be overlong is if I refrain from excessive opinionizing and also refrain from digressions. So go off and make some popcorn. Maybe pour some gin, depending on how I grate on you, because this could be a little long. We'll try. I will try to do it with dispatch. I noticed that one of the packages, there's some manila envelopes, and then there are some cardboard envelopes, and then there are 3 boxes. But I noticed that one of the cardboard envelopes is extremely small, as thin as a sheet of paper. So that is a slim thread that we can hope that maybe this video won't go to an hour. But first thing on Monday, our grand plan will work. The bean is at the ready. Let's see what we have here. Oh, Frida. Oh no, did I give you a sorry, baby. I'm not taking it from you. There you go. I didn't. All right. I thought maybe I gave her a pub sheet, but I didn't. Great. Okay. This is the paperback from Harvard University Press of a terrific book. Just a terrific book. Something that you know it's yet another keyhole history, but this time World War I, and just amazing. Just amazingly good for all that. This is by Elizabeth Cobbs, and this is called The Hello Girls, America's First Women Soldiers. And I don't have a pub sheet, so I'll read you from the book. In 1918, the U.S. Army Signal Corps sent 223 women to France at General Pershing's explicit request. They were masters of the latest technology, the telephone switchboard. While suffragettes picketed the White House and President Wilson struggled to persuade a segregationist Congress to give women of all races the vote, these courageous young women swore the Army oath and settled into their new roles. Elizabeth Cobbs reveals the challenges they faced in a war zone where male soldiers wooed, mocked, and ultimately celebrated them. The Army discharged the last Hello Girls, as they were called, in 1920, the year Congress ratified the 19th Amendment. When they sailed home, they were unexpectedly dismissed without veterans' benefits and began a 60-year battle that a handful of survivors carried to triumph in 1979. And I read this and reviewed it for the Christian Science Monitor and loved it. My review is on both the front and the back of the book, which is very nice. One line on the front. That's always nice. It'd be much nicer if it had my name, but that's okay. I review history for the Monitor. Almost nobody else does. And a longer review on the back, along with the New Yorker and NPR. This is a movie waiting to be done. Just waiting to be made. Because that turnaround, that Hollywood-style turnaround, in reactions on the part of the male soldiers in Europe is actually true. It's documented in this book. It did actually happen. That it's a classic Hollywood arc where these women went from being mocked and reviled and being thought of as easy dates, among many other disdainful things, to being celebrated and revered as soldiers in their own right. Which made the travesty of their veterans' benefits all the worse. So this is now in paperback. Fantastic. This is just the pub. This has just the barcode on the back, so I have no idea how much this is. Actually, maybe the invoice will tell me. That'd be a horrible thing to get some use out of an invoice. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It very obediently zeroes out my cost. Okay, so I don't have any idea how much this costs, but it's really good, and it'll be at your library, I'm sure. Okay, so let's move on to this next one. That's wonderful. Get a blurb by myself. First thing. Okay, all right. This is a double. We've seen this already. Occasionally, doubles happen. That's all right. This is interesting to me. It's intriguing to me. I mentioned when I first got it. It's intriguing because of a fellow booktuber. This comes out in October. This is Frankenstein by Jeanette Winterson, who's an author who has always struck me as more clever than talented, and who has never done anything for me, never moved me, never intrigued me, never made me read her twice. But Britta Buller on her channel mentioned this book, and mentioned also that she loves Jeanette Winterson. And she didn't mention it in the way, on BookTube we have a way of mentioning that we love author X, Y, or Z that is meant to imply, or where we state outright that we love them despite everything. I have plenty of those authors. I admit it. So do you. There's no harm in that at all. There are two channels, right? There are two wavelengths by which we do this sort of thing. You either love a book even though you know it's not good, or you love a book because it is good. And those can exist in the same head at the same time, but not for the same book. And Britta's reaction to this author was not, I love her, what are you going to do? Like my reaction to Steve Alton's Meg books is. She instead, it was the other kind. It was a critical estimation of this author. And coming from a reader like her, that can't be ignored. I get lessons like that from other booktubers all the time. Where they bring up an author and I say, okay, well, I consult my mental card catalog and think, oh, well, here are my opinions about that author. And it's the most disturbing and also the greatest feeling in the world to suddenly realize, oh no, those opinions might not be right. I need to re-examine them. So I will. I haven't done it yet, but I will. I will re-examine it. I will look at this book again. Winterson is daring me to dislike it because framing chunks of this book are historical fiction about Lake Geneva, about the actual vacation where Mary Shelley thought up and wrote a bit of Frankenstein. And to put it mildly, authors of contemporary fiction, historical fiction, whatever kind of fiction, have found it a bit difficult to do justice to Lord Byron on the written page. To put it mildly, that is true. The idea that Jeanette Winterson would be one of the first ones to do that, I don't even know. But the later installments in the book, the later plot lines, advance the story of Victor Frankenstein and his creature into not only the realm of AI, a new form of life that is unpredictable and could be threatening, but also I believe that one of the characters is trans. In Brexit Britain, a young transgender doctor called Rye is falling in love with Victor Stein, a celebrated professor leading the public debate around AI. That could be interesting. We shall see. We shall see. It's like I've said. If I don't love it, I'm going to blame Britta, because that's fun to do anyway. All right, so let's move on here. Let's go to this next one. I have another book for you to eat, Frida. You can't eat the book, but you can eat the package. There we go. Oh my. Okay, great. All right. Believe it or not, you're not going to believe it. I hardly believe it myself. I have not read this yet. Oh, that is terrible. This comes out in early June the 3rd. This is by David Potter, and it is The Origin of Empire, Rome from the Republic to Hadrian. In other words, let's read a little bit about it. In the summer of 264 BC, a Roman army crossed the Straits of Messina from southern Italy to the island of Sicily to annex its first province outside the Italian peninsula. This diplomatic gamble subsequently launched 400 years of imperial expansion that would balloon Rome's borders to include most of Europe and the Mediterranean. By the time of Hadrian's death centuries later, Rome had become one of the most successful multicultural states in history. In this book, noted historian David Potter recounts the wars, leaders, and social transformations from 264 BC to 138 AD. Keeping in mind here that books every bit as long as this and longer have been written about single years in that span. Single years. The year that Caesar crossed the Rubicon, the year that Caesar was assassinated, the year of the four emperors with Otho, Galba, Vitellius, and then Vespasian. Single years have been covered in this length, and this author is doing it all in a book like this. So that will either be frustrating, or I will read it and think, okay, well, this is well done, but it's not in any way, shape, or form for me. So if I'm going to review it, and I intend to review it, then I have to estimate who it's for and whether or not it works for them. But it's a frustrating experience when that happens, and I get it all the time, because I want the book to be for me. But I don't see how that could be. I really don't. I know this exact time period, but especially from Marius and Sulla to Hadrian. I know that time period as well as any historian that's going to write about it. So, well, we shall see. We shall see. Let's see. This book credits Rome's ethnic harmony with its relative openness toward prior rivals. The empire was built on alliances with other Italian city-states, which relinquished sovereignty in exchange for ironclad guarantee of protection. Aside from the odd war here and there. Potter shows how this system both strained and empowered the imperial center. Rome did not simply dominate its potential rivals, it absorbed them by selectively offering citizenship and constructing a tiered membership system that allowed Roman citizens to maintain political control without excluding non-citizens from the state's prosperity. With the xenophobic rhetoric rampant in today's political climate, there is much to learn from Rome's success as a multi-ethnic empire with a strong native culture. Oh my. Let's hope that the folks in Washington, D.C. in 2019 do not learn any of the lessons that Rome has to teach from this period. Let's hope they don't. None of them read, and let's hope it stays that way. Just, because the nation hangs by a thread. It's viewed as, in some circles, it's viewed as extremely alarmist and harebrained to say that. I'm not in those circles, and most of those circles seem to me to be fairly historically illiterate. The nation hangs by a thread, and those of you who live outside of America, who've lived outside of America for a while, and who just reflexively think about what a pain in the neck country America is, how unjust it is, how brutal it can be, how reflective it can be, how childlike it can be, your thoughts about this gigantic and sometimes unpredictable and always maddening superpower that dominates your world, whether you want it to or not, those thoughts are echoed perfectly in letters and diaries, letters and journals and whatnot of those European countries in and around and in the proximity of Rome during exactly the period covered by this book. And the lesson that the oldest people in those colony cities and city-states could tell you, those of you living outside of America, is very simple. If you think the country's bad now, you have no idea how bad it would be if it went from a functioning republic to a functional empire. An imperial system with, for instance, a family running it by grift and by intimidation and through personal let through generations. That would be worse. Take my word for it. That would be worse. But anyway, I have not read this yet. I really need to. I really need to read it and see who it's geared for, and assess it that way. It's just I've spent the whole day writing out on the couch. I've had a sweatshirt and pants and socks on the whole time. I've had the window closed, both the window and the storm window closed, but nevertheless, it's finally been marginally warm enough to at least spend time out there. And it's been so much fun that I haven't done much reading. Anyway, now we have the incredibly thin cardboard envelope. So a volume of poetry is what I guess. I don't imagine it could be anything else. What on earth? What on earth? No pub sheet again. Okay. All right. I have no idea what this is. I never know what I'm going to get on this channel. Never. Okay. This is a Penguin mass market of John Steinbeck's novel, The Pearl, in Spanish. No pub sheet to tell me why. No paperwork to explain why this is coming to me. I certainly didn't request it. It is, as far as I know, my only Penguin in Spanish. I don't think I've ever read Steinbeck in Spanish. I wonder if it improves him. I can't imagine that it does. I can't imagine that it does. His particular prose style, his particular prose rhythm doesn't fit with Spanish at all. I have to see. I have to see. Does this even tell me Anything? Okay, all right, this... Okay, well, those of you who are in Spain or of the Spanish-speaking world, this translation into Spanish is new for 2019. All right, let's just move on. let's just move on. We've got some cardboard now. We'll work our way towards the boxes. Do you want this? Oh my gosh, baby. Frida is all up in arms. We had an enormous walk today, ill-advisedly long, but we were both so eager. It was, believe it or not, a sunny day, and no rain here today. so the two of us were just irresponsibly eager to go out and about. So we walked and met so many people. Okay, all right. We saw this already. This comes out in early June. We saw the advance copy of this. This is Adrian Tinniswood, a very good historian, and this is a story of the Royal Society, history of the Royal Society. So we saw this already. This is just, it comes out in early June. It's just a potted history of the Royal Society with all of the usual stuff that you would expect to find. Its founding, its famous members, its existence in the modern day, its most noteworthy discoveries. I have had the advance copy and haven't got to it. It's a familiar refrain on this channel, but I've been so busy with May books that I haven't really done a whole lot of June books. But I will. I admit, you can tell from my summary, I don't hold much hope that this will knock my socks off any more than I do for the Origins of Empire. I think in both cases these books are aimed at other people than me. But I'll give it a try. I could be wrong. I have been wrong on little volumes like that before. I've got another one of these vacuum pack things that you have to tear it into little shreds to get it open. You have to tear it into little shreds because the inside of the packaging is adhesive. So if you leave any sheet as big as a piece of paper, everything that you have will stick to it. So you have to shred it in order to dispose of it. I have several thoughts about that, all of them in Spanish. So what? Oh, fantastic! All right, great. It's romances. Wonderful. Okay. So the first one is contemporary. A contemporary romance. This is by Melanie Johnson, and it is part of a Sometimes in Love series, and it's called Smitten by the Brit. If I'm not mistaken, it will be getting hot with the Scot. Smitten by the Brit. I don't want to think about the American one. Tanked by the Yank. I don't want to know. So these are contemporary novels in which young women date their way around the United Nations. This comes out at the very end of May. And it's a delightful contemporary starring an English professor and the swoon-worthy Brit she met on her girls' trip to the UK. I've been to the UK many, many, many times. I've only a handful of times met a swoon-worthy Brit. Although, in one particular case... one particular case was not only swoon-worthy, but lasted, which is always fun. The bloom goes off. It's different for British women, of course. British women stay pretty their whole lives. But British men achieve a brief window of beauty, usually in their late teens and early 20s, and it lasts literally for a year. And then things start falling off left, right, then things go to hell. But it's true even with the most famous 19, 18-year-old British man of the 20th century. If you and it's impossible to think now, but if you look at the archival photographs of Prince Charles, you will see, if you study those photos, this is a guy who's photographed every day of his life, literally, since the day he was born. If you study those photographs, you can see the exact window that I'm talking about. And then it went away. It's even true for, like, Stephen Fry has continued, much like some species of South American lizards, he's continued to grow his whole life. He has not reached any maximum size. He's like 8.5 feet tall now, 500 pounds, and craggy as the cliffs of Dover. But even Stephen Fry, if you look carefully at his photographic record, also someone who's been photographed virtually every day of his life, you can see that moment. Anyway, English professor Bonnie Blythe, her name is Bonnie Blythe, okay, expects her life to play out like her favorite novels, especially now that her long-term boyfriend has finally proposed. So when a shocking discovery leads Bonnie to end her engagement, she decides to close the book on love. But the plot thickens when a brand new character enters the scene and quickens Bonnie's heart. With his brilliant blue eyes, sexy accent, and irresistible charm, Theo Wharton is like a romantic hero straight out of a Jane Austen novel. What fate places Bonnie in England for the summer, conveniently close to Theo, she realizes a hot friends with benefits fling is exactly what she needs to start a fresh chapter. Well, yes, we've all been there. And I imagine that from that friends with benefits fling, she's going to fall in love. In love. So that's the contemporary. But it wouldn't be a Steve Romance Hall without a historical. And I have one by a terrific historical author. This is The Earl Next Door by Amelia Gray, who is fantastic. She cannot be beat. Look at this cover. Look at that. Look at that manor in the background, lit by moonlight. That is lovely. This is the tale of a stubborn young widow and a lord set on changing her heart. When Adeline, Dowager Countess of Wake, learns of her husband's sudden death, she realizes she's free. At last, she can do, go, and be as she pleases. Finally, she can have the life she's always dreamed of. She doesn't need or want to remarry, especially not the supremely dashing future Marquis of Marksworth, who makes Adeline yearn for his desire. And the Marquis is the exact opposite. He's the exact opposite. This is an inversion. I've mentioned this book before on this channel. This is an inversion of the standard Regency program because he is the son of a noted philanderer and wants nothing to do with that world. And in the carefully arranged setup of this book, she is in a position and with means to maybe be a little philandering. Of course, that wouldn't have worked at all, but there's a certain amount of fantasy. There's a certain element of fantasy in most contemporary Regencies. Most of these big, elaborate things, these things that have, bare breasts, his or hers or both on the cover, that don't bear any resemblance to, for instance, the Regency romances of 3 decades ago that were far, far closer to what reality would have been. But I've mentioned The Earl Next Door before on this channel. I'm trying to remember where I have it. But I do have it, and I really liked it. It's really enjoyable. Once you factor in that element of fantasy, it's really enjoyable. This is a First Comes Love novel that I think I mentioned it maybe in my May TBRBY. I might have mentioned it then. I'm glad to have another copy, and this one is embossed. That's always nice. All right, so that was a package, but it was 2 mass markets. So let's move on to the first of the boxes. I guess we're going to kiss goodbye to a short video, but they will be coming. I have heard you loud and clear. They will be coming. It's just I got all these at once. What am I going to do? Artificially dox them up and say, oh, here's 3 that I got this morning. Oh, well, what do you know? I got more this afternoon. I'm not a bad YouTuber, okay? I don't lie to you. So let's see. Let's see what this next one is. This is by Sharon Marcus, and it's The Drama of Celebrity from the folks at Princeton University Press. This comes out in late June. Drawing on scrapbooks, personal diaries, and vintage fan mail, Sharon Marcus traces celebrity culture back to its 19th century roots, when people the world over found themselves captivated by celebrity chefs, bad boy poets, and actors such as the divine Sarah Bernhardt, as famous in her day as the Beatles in theirs. Same thing's true. The publisher doesn't mention him. The same thing's true with Valentino. I hope he makes an appearance in this book. Let's take a quick look, see if he does, because a book on this subject that doesn't know about him or deal with him, he does. He makes 1 appearance in this book. Okay, so the author has other agendas in mind. Using Bernhardt as a through line to compare the past and present, Marcus shows how celebrity culture hasn't really changed over the years. Just short of wearing a dress made out of meat, Bernhardt, I feel like Captain America in the Avengers. I get that reference. Bernhardt was the 19th century's Lady Gaga. She was known in her youth for sleeping in a coffin, keeping a skeleton in her room, and rumored to have lesbian relations. And so that is probably why you could write a book like this with a through line being Valentino. The same thing, and a whole bunch of other people. Sarah Bernhardt will do just fine. She'll do just fine. Wow. Okay, great. I did not know this was coming. This comes out in late June, and I'm always up for it because we're all part of this now. We're all part of that celebrity, of the drama of celebrity now, whether we want to be or not. If you're on Twitter, you're part of that that whole thing. You can't avoid it. Okay, so next we have another box, and this is a huge thing. It's a great big thing. So it could be an art book. I've noticed that in the time that I've had this channel, I haven't gotten many art books, and I love them. Most of them, I dearly love them. I got one the other day on a contemporary photographer, oh, okay, okay. All right. This is a companion volume to an exhibition that goes up at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. It's going to be in Washington from May 5th until July 28th, and then it moves to Los Angeles. Oh my. Okay. The book itself comes out on May the 21st, and this is incredible. This is The Life of Animals in Japanese Art. That is a crane on the cover, on the front. On the back, we have a whole bunch of different other examples. There's an old painting. There's a photograph of look at that. Incredible. Look at that. All right. The Life of Animals in Japanese Art. Oh, my. Few countries have devoted as much artistic energy to the depiction of animal life as Japan. England would be another one of those. I'm sure that the pub sheet author knows that. Drawing upon the country's unique spiritual heritage, rich literary traditions, and currents in popular culture, Japanese artists have long expressed admiration for animals in sculpture, painting, lacquerwork, ceramics, metalwork, textiles, and woodblock prints. This beautiful book celebrates this diverse range of work from ancient 5th century clay to contemporary pieces. Oh boy. Okay. All right. So this is edited by Robert Singer and Kawai Masatomo, and the exhibition is up at the National Gallery already. So we will have to beg and plead with Rachel Morrow to go and see if she's allowed to take any pictures. Oh boy, how wonderful. Okay, fantastic. All right, that's a great big thing. And then the last thing is this square box, which it's fat and thick, but it's not heavy. It could be a mass market paperback or a trade paperback that somebody just thought was more convenient to put in a box. That does sometimes happen. Let's take a look at what we have here. Oh no, okay, it's a hardcover anyway, and it's a big hardcover, so this is partially justified. We've seen this already. This comes out, I think, in early June. Yeah, June the 4th, but I've already read this, and I thought it was great, just great. I hope that it gets reviewed everywhere. I hope it's on a lot of book editor itineraries to get to. It's not on mine, unfortunately. For any of the places that I review for other editors, this is not on the docket. But I will review it definitely for Open Letters. This is by Darren Dochuk, and it is Anointed with Oil. And it's a big book, and it tells the long story of the interweaving of Christianity and oil in American history. Let's see, from the moment Americans first struck oil during the Civil War, they saw it as God's special blessing on the nation and the source of America's mission to transform the world. Over the century that followed, oil transformed American business and politics, giving rise to an American exceptionalism that was deeply entwined with Christian faith. So this is fairly uncomfortable reading, but the author does a fantastic job. This is another one of those big galumphing books, like the one we saw a whole stack of them yesterday. It's one of those big galumphing books that's coming out this summer. Very encouraging to know that Pegasus Books and Basic Books and a whole bunch of academic presses are coming out with these big things, even though the summer is typically and stupidly characterized as a time when no Americans will read them. I don't believe that. I've never believed it. I've always seen evidence to the contrary, and these things are proving me right. So, wonderful. This is going to be on your bookstore tables, in a couple of weeks. And if you're even vaguely interested in the subject, this doubles, it triples. It is an excellent story of Christian evangelism and fundamentalist tent revival Christianity in America. It's an excellent history of oil and the oil industry in America. There have been some great books on that subject, but this is also really good. It functions as a history of that industry. And it's a fantastic history of the way that they have reinforced and helped to define each other. I recommend it very strongly. Very strongly. In fact, I'm not 100% sure. I'm sort of blanking now, but I'm not 100% sure that this wasn't on my May TBRBY as well. It's been 1,000 videos since then, so I don't quite remember. But one way or another, wonderful. Okay. All right. This mail haul was on the long side. But it had some fascinating things in it. A big art book. The Life of Animals in Japanese Art. Fantastic. Then Anointed with Oil, a history of oil and the cross. Let's see here. The Origin of Empire, about the most documented and most pivotal long stretch of Roman history, the change from republic to empire, and then the change from small empire to large empire, ending with Hadrian, who's one of whose first acts when he came to the empire, when he took it over from Trajan, one of his first acts was to restrict the size of the empire, to shrink it, to sort of put the brakes on Trajan's massive program of expansion. So it'll be interesting to see. The end chapters of this book will probably be the most interesting ones in it. Then the drama of celebrity, seen through the focal point of Sarah Bernhardt. That's fascinating in its own right. The Royal Society, Adrian Tinniswood's short history of the Royal Society. The Hello Girls in paperback, another strong recommendation. It's a terrific little story. Frankenstein from Janet Winterson, and if it's not good, we can all blame Britta. The Pearl by John Steinbeck in Spanish, in a new Spanish translation, but still. And then two romances, Smitten by the Brit and The Earl Next Door. So that is our last mail haul of the week. Plenty of variety and plenty of interesting things. Can't wait to dig in as soon as I finish. But this has gone on way too long. Sorry, BookTube. I have heard you. I will adapt. First thing on Monday. The weekends not good. So that was it. That was the end of the mail for now, and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.